Stepped into your skin, got me tripping over myself. Figured I would say something, passing the time. If you come on over here, we...
Episode 6 is all about highlights and lowlights. We're going to go into the salon. We're going to do a really salon-friendly look today. It's what I do in the salon all the time. I want to bring you in. We'll be talking technique and using a whole spectrum of the colour chart. Episode, it's all about highlights and lowlights. We've got Keisha here. She has virgin hair, which is like a miracle in the world of my world, just in hairdressing. I think you can never get that, so perfect. We're going to keep a really earthy feel though, really salon friendly. We're going to add a fringe in, so it's going to be a bit fun, something a little bit more technical with the haircut. And just lighten the load a little bit, take a bit of the bulk out. But I really love these colours. They're natural colours, you know, so the sun's done that. So what I want to do is just push that up a little bit, give it a highlighted, and we'll use low lights to just balance the look. I don't want it to be too light all over. So it's going to be a lovely mix of colours, using 3 different colours, and very technical with my foils. Let's get mixing some colour. Highlights and lowlights. I'm going to keep this pretty simple, and that's the way I work. I want it to be believable, and this is a real salon-friendly look. So we're going to go with the Alpine Blonder 9 levels, so it's the highest lift. We have a 7 level as well. Takes great care of the hair. I'm going to mix that 1 to 2 mix, and I'm going to use 3% only. So I like it to happen, I don't want it to get there too quickly. I want everything to process at the same time, so that's what I always love dropping and using lower developers with powder lightener. And another colour we're using is 12.2, so it's a high lift colour. We're going to use that with a 9%, and that is also 1 part colour to 2 part developer. Our darker colour, so our reverse foil, is the 732. So I love the mix of this. It's a warm cool. To me, I love those mixes. It's got a bit of both, so predominantly warm and then a little bit of cool. So it just controls the colour. I love it. It'll lighten a shade with this hair type, so 1 shade lighter, and it just looks beautiful, adds shine to the hair and adds a bit of texture and diversity as well with the colour. But my aim with this is to be quite fine in my approach. I'm going to lighten it more as we move to the face, because we're going to elaborate that with the haircut and break that up. And I always love to work that little bit lighter toward the facial area. I think it just complements people's look. Okay, so here's our 732. So you can see it's a nice controlled colour. It's not got too much warmth in it, and that's what I want. I didn't want anything to get too coppery or gold. So the 0.2 in that mix is the controlling colour there. And then the lighter colour is a 12-2, and as you can see that, it's a beautiful pearl hue. So it's got a little bit of violet, pearl violet in there. It's very soft and muted. So when you're lightening hair, it does throw a little bit of warmth. That will control that, but it won't override that, which that's what I want. I want it to be real. I don't want it to be a false colour. Let's get mixing. So 1 to 1.5 with this. This is my 732. And mix that with 3%. This is my 12.2, so it's a 1 plus 9%, 2. So 1 part to 2 parts. So it's a 1 to 2 mix. So 1 part powder, 2 parts, 3%. So it's really important to use scales. The Leyton house scales, super accurate. and it just keeps you in the game. I think if you start guessing things, that's the result you get. So be accurate with your mix, especially with powder lightener. When you're mixing the powder, just fold it in over each other. I don't like to be too aggressive with it. Just let it mix in. And then you get your mix, it thickens up as you go. So that 1 to 2 mix I find really good for foiling. It's a nice consistency. Okay, so this is my foil sections. There's a parting through the middle. I move with the part. So if the part's over here, that central part, the rectangle through the top, would move to the side over that part. So I get a little bit of real estate in each side of the part. It just distributes the color better. So what we do, if I put your head down, we take the first section here, and it's sort of just above recession, coming back through the middle to the crown, and I take another subsection here, which ends up a little square, and that's my first foil in here. That's gonna lay over this natural hair here, because I think that's a beautiful color, like naturally. All I wanna do is enhance that. So I'm gonna go color 1, 2, 3, all the way through. And then that's just gonna sit over that nicely. I come through the top first, and then I come up through these side sections. So you can see that side section there. I come off that hairline, working off that angle of the front hairline, and taking a really fine section first. I don't want that to be a chunky foil. I want that to be a really soft start. So really fine sections and a fine weave, and I build that into that top section. I come up to this point on both sides. So what that will do is just lay over this natural color. It's going to enhance it. Remember, I'm not bleaching the whole thing. I am just giving this a beautiful sun-kissed look. And then I'm going to show you a technique that I'll talk about later on to lighten those ends up a little bit more in the foil process. Okay, so quite a fine to medium weave. If I feel like it's a little bit heavy in any area, I just slide a little bit of that out because I want consistency. So when I'm applying a foil, I come just away from the roots there. I get it on nice and thick through. This is my reverse foil, my 732. I get that all the way through the ends first, so my hand underneath is just supporting that. And then what I do is just fan closer to the roots. So I've got less color on my brush at this point. That will save me from getting a bleed. Simon says top tip to eliminate any bleeds with your foils, which can happen when you put too much color on. So apply slightly away from the root, just a little bit, and then come back in and fan it in when there's less color on your brush. That will stop the color from overloading, swelling, and then bleeding onto the scalp. Okay, this first section's really poignant. I think all the hairlines are really important parts. So I've taken a really fine section there, fine weave. And you can just see that hair's going to integrate in there really nicely. It's a little bit finer, the hair around the front as well, so I think you've got to start a little bit more delicate. I'm going to start there with my lightest colour though, because I really want that lightness to fall onto the face. Again, front hairline, I work off this angle. So I take a really fine section like that, and then I weave my lightest color in there, and then I move back on that angle, changing the trajectory until I get to the top. Simon says tip of the episode is tip lightening. So what we're doing is teasing back the hair. So we've already obviously got the foils in, and I've picked up a couple of sections like that, and I want to remove, 30, 40% of the hair, and then I'm just going to lighten this up. I've mixed up a separate color for this. So we've moved into the Blonder 7. So it's a 7-level lift. It's a little bit more gentle. I just did that with 3%. So all we want to do is just lighten up these ends, and that will frame the face even more. Just paint that on and then just bring it back the opposite way. Feather it in so you don't have that really hard start finish, which is something that is my thing. I like things to travel. I don't want it to look like, okay, I started it there, whoops. I want it to be nice and flowy visually. So it's a really quick technique that can really enhance someone's color around their face. And it's done in one process. We don't have to rinse anything off and start again. I think that's, for me, that's got a commercial reality on it. Just seeing where the hair's going to be falling. Feel out where I stop. I'm going to put one more in there. I'm going to tease that a little bit harder. The reasoning for this is that's going to lay over the top of this. So you can see I've taken more hair out of the mix. And that is going to help me dry the hair faster and get the hair a fair bit of gloss as I'm blow drying it in. I'm also going to use it as a cutting agent. It's quite nice. It makes the hair nice and silky and easy to manage. I always cut with the product in the hair. It's really important to start that process now rather than after the haircut. You're building that shape. You should be adding the product even when it's wet. I like to cut wet to dry. Today we're going to cut a bit of length off at the back and just slightly bring it down to on the same shape as the chin actually, so it's like a slightly longer at the front. So the angle coming off there is that jaw. So I want to replicate that down here. If it's too steep, it's not going to look right. If it's flat, I'm just going to square it off. I really want to just come in and complement that face shape with that. And we're going to cut a fringe in. But we're going to also bevel it out so it's not so blocky and triangular. I want to break it up, graduate it slightly, free it up. It's fine hair with a lot in it, so it's quite dense, which is great. It's beautiful hair. It's nice, shiny, silky. It's just a lot of it. What I do like to do is just dry the fringe down first, because that's, if there's any cowlicks or bumps in it, this will just iron that out. So I always cut the fringes dry as well. So just with the comb, the wide teeth of the comb, just combing it down. I'm adding a little bit more hair into the fringe. You can see as the hair's drying, that colour's really coming out, it's lightening up, it's beautiful. Simon says tip when cutting hair, I really like cutting a fringe dry, and I love drying it with the comb. I can get more control over it, and I don't want to lift it up. If I use a brush, it'll lift and bubble up. I want it to sit relatively flat in its natural fall, and the comb allows me to do this. So there we've got a little bit of a rise. I just come over that and I just comb it down as I dry it, and it'll just help it sit a little flatter. So that's a really good tip too when you're blow drying your hair at home. Use a comb first on the fringe and then get it in its natural fall, and then if you want to use a straightener, use a straightener later. Start on the fringe. What I like to do with the fringe is rough it in first, wide teeth of the comb again, and I feed the hair, the scissors are closed. I pick the hair up. What I want it to do is just fall into the comb there, so tap it in, so the comb's got control of it, and then I point cut it in. So this is just roughing it in and just getting a shape, and then I'll refine it later. I'm going to come out to this section here, again scissors closed, pick up all of that hair, and then come down closer to the face and cut it through the comb. So the comb is giving it control, and it's keeping a straight line as well. What I can do is be straight in the middle and come down out here so I get a convex or concave fringe, or I could pick it up like that, and that would totally round that off. We could square it. So this is basically cutting your line. You're not doing it through your fingers, you're doing it through the comb. Just find a great way to cut fringes. Again, we're going to pick it all up, feed it into the comb. Make sure you've got control, and it's in the back of the comb, so I tap it in. I've got control of that hair. So there's my roughed in fringe. I'm going to leave that now. I just want to cut it and then look at it in the mirror and just see how it's sitting. But you'll already see the cheekbones pop up as soon as you add a fringe. And then when I get it all dry, I'll come in and I'll detail that and sharpen it all up. It's just good to start at the visual point for the client too sometimes, not leave it to the end. They start feeling great about their haircut in the mirror. They can see the colour drying, which is looking fantastic. Okay, what we're going to do with the length is bring it up. So we're taking about that much off the back, but we won't take that much off the front. So the angle, as I said, will go in line with the jaw. So when your head's upright, this is my angle, but we're down here. We're on shoulder length, but I'm just bringing that off the collar at the back. And then we're going to bevel the edges out. So your first section, it's head in a forward position. I like to cut that onto the skin. I'll just point cut that away again. I like to point cut all my bobs. I get a more honed line when I'm like that, especially when it's this graduation as I come out. You'll make more sense of that in the next few sections. So this I'm just going to cut through the comb because the cape's there. Again, I'm point cutting. My comb is my guide then. You can see I've got good tension on the hair with the comb as well. Like all of that hair is nice and clean. No bends. You gotta have a bit of discipline with that, just so you get a nice clean line. All right, we're going to travel around into the sides now. So I'm up to here, and this next section, every section's parallel to the one before, and I stay on that same path. And what it mirrors is this. So as you go up, your sections are the same, and then your cutting line is the same. So they're the rules I have to stick by. I think you've got to have rules. You know, we're all creatives, but I just think that having a system and thinking it out, especially with the bob, it's really important to have your system in place. So what we're doing with these sections, we're going to elevate them out slightly, and that's going to start a little bit of a graduation process. So I can see my line through here, and then I'm just going to point cut that in. So I'm 2-3 fingers off the hairline now, and I'm still point cutting. Coming out to that next section. Manageable sections. Working the whole thing up, and as I move across, I'm gonna just drop my hand position a little bit more as I move forward. So I'm not out as high as that first middle section. And then I'm gonna change the head position, and I'm just gonna move it away from me. So what I like to do, ears get in the way of everything. So I like to either split them like this and then work behind the ear, then borrow a piece of that and then work in front of the ear. Or we could come in here, cut it through the comb, like that, parallel to that, push on here so I get a little bit of slack over the ear and then cut that in. So they're your two options. I'll do option 1 first. Splitting it in the middle of the ear, coming down in behind the ear, combing the hair nice and tight. Just a slight elevation. I borrow a little bit from that last section. I come forward now. I need the chin up and then across, yeah? So the head's always away from me. If you drop the chin, you're not gonna have a nice solid line through there. Make sure it's nice and flat. The ear's not in the way. Simon says top tip. For sectioning, always section with the wide teeth of the comb. So what I want to do is just put my finger on top of the comb so I've got control, and it's along the scalp the whole way. And then I just pull it away like that. So I don't have to take that 10 times. I don't do it with a clip. I think it takes better discipline and it's more accurate with a comb. You can see that that's really straight and that's on the right angle. So I've got control over that. So tip is, finger on top of the comb, leave it on the scalp. As soon as it leaves the scalp, pull the hair on the outside of the comb and split it, and you'll get a clean section like that every time. Right, we're just going to put a little bit of bevel on the line here now. So by doing a graduation technique that looks a little bit like layering, I guess, I'm pulling the hair out about 45 degrees and I'm coming in and just point cutting that away. I don't want this to be a really solid line. I'm using a little bit more of a looser technique. I come back onto that previously cut section, combing really clean and neat. Fingers at that angle and just point cut like that. So I'm breaking that line up. So what that will do is just diffuse that line. It builds the shape, but you don't have any cut lines in there or marks. I want this to be really seamless. And then what I'm going to do is come through and slice out all of the weight through there just to break it up so the hair moves. I want it to bounce around and come back to its natural position. I'm just going to go through now and remove a bit of the weight. I'm going to use a slicing technique, which I love. I'll also go through again when it's dry, and then that will just really personalize the haircut. What I want to go is go halfway down the hair shaft, drop the hair down like this. So I want it to flow that way because it needs to flow into the scissors and go like that. I'm going to slide out. I'm going to do it faster, but that's what it's going to do. So it's a really good shape, right? You don't want to be chasing it. You need to let it flop over like that and then just slide through. Hold the hair nice and tight with your 2 fingers and just slide it out. Just working through in the same manner as I did that bit of graduation, but I'm just sliding through a little bit deeper, and that's taking that last third of the hair, it's thinning that out, and giving it some texture. Simon says tip of this episode is the fringe, and there's a little bit of hair on the side here that is a bit weak. And when I say a bit weak, it's that it doesn't fall into this line. That generally happens is that finer hair just at the side of the fringe. So I've done a little V section here first and I roughed it in. And all I want to do is add this hair in now. The difference is amazing. What it does is opens this portion of the face. At the moment it's a bit closed in. I want that cheekbone to pop out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just freehand, I'm going to come in here and I come up. I'm just going to point that off like that. By adding that little slither of hair, we're going to get a bit of cheekbone, which is, you know, who doesn't want that? You can just see that's opened it up there, just come out that little bit wider and it's more distinct there into the bob. So how you find that piece is just push it around with your finger and you can just see that there. That's that weak spot just there in front of the comb there. So again, just freehand, just coming up to that point, just pointing that away. You don't have to talk to your client about doing it or even get permission because they're going to see a result straight away. All I want to do with this now is just break this up a little bit more. I'm just going to go with the point cutting technique now. There's still a lot of hair in there. Just going to pull it up and just cut some wedges out of there. Really deep. Really big sections. Going as deep as the scissors will allow you, going right down to my fingers. Just allowing when the hair gets a little bit thinner toward the face, just project that back a little bit. You just see those little ends that I put the tips in there. You can just see it's a little bit lighter toward that front of the hairstyle, which I really love around there. It just pops around the face. Just blocks that out a little bit more, so it's really gentle up here, and then we end up at a light end. Simon says, I want some volume spritz. So what we're going to do with volume spritz is something a little bit different. You won't read this on the manufacturer instructions, but we're hairdressers, we've got to break rules. So it's not too bad a rule to break, but what I want to do is I want to use it as a texturizing spray. So it's a volume spray. It has a little bit of hold, like, you know, quite a firm hold, but it makes the hair feel like hair. So what I'm going to do is spray it through. It's a wet spray. And I'm going to spray it through and then I follow with the blow dryer and that dries it immediately. What that does is separates the hair a little bit, gives it a bit of texture. So it's a wet spray. I'm using it as a finishing spray. Just by blasting it through, you'll get that texture happening, what we've all done with the scissors and the slicing through there. Highlights and lowlights, this is our finished result and I can say that I'm really pleased with our result. The three colours that we used were 7.32 and 3%, so that's my reverse foil and you can see that just laying in there beautifully and it gives the light just something to pop off. Second colour was a 12.2 and we used a 9%. That's a mix of 1 to 2. And that is just a softer, gentler blonde, so it's got a little bit of tone on it. It doesn't go all the way to clean, but it's just beautiful. And the third colour in there we have as a foil, which are really fine foils, was the Blonder 9, and we used 3%. So that is clean. There is no toner on this hair, which I am really chuffed about. I think that is a beautiful result for non-toned hair. Then we mix up the Blonder 7 on the ends with 3%, and we just teased back, remember, and we just did the tips. So you can just see them accenting around the face there, which I think really just pushes nicely onto the face. And then the haircut, really clean. It was a point cut bob, choppy little graduation, and then this beautiful fringe. We just took it a little bit wider to open the cheekbones up, and you've got to agree that just moves beautifully in their colour and cut. I think the highlights really complement that style of cutting. But this is something that I do in the salon, and I'm sure you do every day, and I think it's the thing that is understated. I think we think it's a bit boring, but it's beautiful. I think if we stick to those things and then just pick them up that little bit more, your client is going to love you and come back forever. Thanks for watching this episode. It's been great, great makeover, great model. Thank you.